good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about what we do at HELVETIA. I suppose you're familiar with the company, right? So what we'll be talking about is a couple of use cases and maybe a couple of takeaways from our project experience. First about HELVETIA, it's one of the biggest Swiss insurance companies. I think you're familiar with it, so I'll not go into too much detail with that. My background and role, I'm now working 17 years for HELVETIA. I get they keep me, I'm not quite sure. I've been working as a client engineer for a couple of years and been doing identity and access management for like 8 years. And while I was doing that, I was establishing Splunk as a sideline, as a hobby, pretty much. So it's a grassroots initiative, which gives some implications for how to get it established in the company. Yeah. That's already what we said, right? We got started like 10 years ago. We were looking actually for something to get Windows events from the clients, back when I was in the client engineering team. And my brother found Splunk version 3 something. It was really just a sideline. We used it in one team. It got more and more people hooked. Eventually, all the developers were using it. But it took 10 years. It took almost 10 years until finally the company decided to establish a security operations center. And since we had a good base with all the data, we started using Splunk for the security operations center directly. And it gives a lot of opportunities, and it gives us the possibility to really do it full time. So I also changed into that section starting September last year. Yeah, so as you can imagine, we have been using it as a very small installation for a long time. We upgraded our installation significantly, but we're still tiny compared to Swisscom, for instance. So yeah, we have only 4 indexes. They're physical due to performance considerations. All the other machines are virtual machines. The benefit there is we don't really need the I/O performance. So we benefit rather from the ease of management and the failover that is provided by the virtualization. One thing that is maybe a little bit atypical for this size is we have a layer of heavy forwarders where we do link aggregation, we do filtering, we do repair of logs that are a bit tricky. So yeah, that might be slightly not reference, but yeah, it's useful for us. We have lots of sources, thousands and thousands. It might not sound like so much, but yeah, handling that is always a bit tricky. But for the benefit of briefness, I will just go into 3 use cases. We have plenty use cases, but those are like major ones in a chronological order. First, the establishment of a logging platform, classic Splunk 3.0, right? Then the guys doing the IP telephony saw benefit in it, and ultimately we started using it as secure incident and event monitoring platform. The thing is, we work together with the developers to set standards, standards like where do log files get written to, what is the content, what is the format, etc. So it's really easy for us to add a new application in our standard setup in the company. Takes a couple of minutes only, and it's integrated. Pretty much need to know only for what country the application is. Mostly they're hosted in the corporate data center, so we already have the easy access to that. We have mostly Java applications, so what we did is we have a logging class that is already writing the proper logs, and they are according to a common information model. So the fields are already directly passed. That makes it a lot easier. One benefit that we have is we have the control over the infrastructure. So the border systems or the integration buses, if the transaction is generated there, they will generate the transaction, pass it to the applications, or they will just also log it if it's generated on a front system, like coming from web application firewall to a backend system, going to web service call. So you can, with that transaction ID, see all that's happening in this particular click of the customer. That helps the developers and the operation guys to see also the part of the issue that is not in their system, which they usually don't have access to, right? So one of the things is really the ease of seeing stuff that is happening somewhere else. That's the main benefit for a developer. Also, they don't really have access to production system, right? So they need something. Second thing that we do that's a bit particular is we do enrichment of the logs. The information that we gather is obviously, as I used to be a directory guy, the identity system. So we get all of the identities with a couple of informations that we can use to enrich the events with. We have the inventory data. I used to be client engineer, right? So we set up the CMDB back then. We also get that information and enrich the logs with all that information that is automatically available. And additionally, I had to work a little bit extra to get the information from the IP address management. So that is network definitions, DNS entries, and so on. So when you have a normal log event, you get 10 times the amount of information than what is really just in the log inside. The screenshots show simple dashboards where you can use it also for reference, because usually the people don't really have access to the systems, and it's just much easier that way. Yeah, then later, one of the interesting things is the IP telephony stuff. There might be a couple of guys interested in that, I'm not quite sure. We started off buying a premium app that is available on Splunk base, Cisco CTR reporting and analytics. It has tons of use cases for the telephony guys. Then additionally, to get some more information and implement more use cases, I implemented the API connected to the configuration database and also some real-time information from Cisco Call Manager. So that gives you the opportunity to do a lot more use cases. Like for instance, if you need to replace a specific phone model, you get the list with the locations, the offices, and so on. That's just 2 minutes effort and so on. So it's really, really useful. We do lots of things in that area. Then already getting a little bit into the direction of the secure incident and event monitoring. Recently, we had phone calls, people trying to say they were Microsoft, right? And we got the phone numbers, and the telephony guys were able to tell us if it's really significant. It was really significant. We had hundreds of calls by specific phone numbers, and we were able to block them. We were able to block them. You can see this in this nice, colorful screenshot, because we have migrated to zip trunking. So you can see a dashboard that the guys use to track what is the capacity, where the calls coming in, is the migration completed, and so on. And you can see the red bar. It's recently achieved 100%, so we're done with the migration to zip trunking. That's one of the things they just use to report. Second thing you can do, and we'll be doing more of that in the future, is also checking the amount of calls and so on in order to do capacity planning, etc. So that's just the stuff they do themselves. We don't really have to help a lot. We just onboard them. We teach them a little bit how to work with that, and then they do it themselves. But the big topic lately for me, obviously, is secure incident and event monitoring. Already for years, obviously, you have stuff like virus scanner, firewalls, spam blocking, yada yada. So what we do is we use Splunk as a layer on top of all these already working services, and we integrate all the information. The benefit here, again, is the groundwork by Enterprise Security. They provide for most components already the technical add-on that gives you the information normalized, so you can, as you see in the screenshot, search across all the different antivirus products that we have. Plenty, you probably also have plenty, and they just look the same. It doesn't matter where it is happening. Is it on the client? Is it on the server? Is it on a mail gateway? You always have the same information, and you just find it in one simple way. This is an app from the App Store, actually. It will integrate all the relevant logs and give you a couple of simple dashboards. You don't have to do it yourself. It's usually somebody has done it for you, right? There's a topic that's going to be coming up again. Usually somebody has done it for you. Then next thing, as you have seen, we enriched information that we see in the log files with information about the identity. Is it a high-value target? Is it somebody with elevated privileges? Is it somebody who is higher up in the hierarchy? So that is all aspects that go into checking if an incident is relevant and significant so that we can work on the important issues. Because, yeah, I mean, there's just too many tickets a day to really work on all, so you have to select which are the important ones. So what we do is we use this app, Alert Manager, freely available on the Splunk base again, so that we can generate automatically enriched tickets with lots of sensitive information, but we keep it within Splunk. So we don't have issues with that. We can directly work inside Splunk with those informations, and that's really convenient. By the way, two of the developers are in the public today, I think. Oh yeah, down there, the guy with the hat, the guy with the hat. We do customize a little bit, but it's really useful. And the next thing is, what it enables us to do is, for the first time actually, to easily aggregate all the information across all those different security silos and generate KPIs. So the KPIs can be reported. The screenshot again is a sample. I had to avoid putting any numbers, I'm sorry. They're not so interesting, they're pretty good. But we didn't know that, right? We didn't know that we were pretty good. And for the first time it was possible to show and generate the KPIs automatically for the management and report them. So that's really a benefit for us. I guess that's obvious, right? Not quite sure. We do try to enrich information. It's not yet released. I hope to finish it. Sometimes with patch management systems, which is one of the things that we aggregate over our systems, the patch information, you don't always have the CVSS score, so how critical is a patch, or you just have a Microsoft KB reference, and you can get from A to B by getting the information. We take it from the Security Incident Response Team Luxembourg. That's surprising, but they're really cool. And then try to enrich so we can report if a patch that is missing is critical, etc. KPIs, KPIs, KPIs. That's really good for managers, I guess. Then one thing, obviously, as you see, I'm not a manager. I am a technical guy. Somehow in the first slide, the version 0.9 was omitted. It's obviously not a 1.0. IT guys, I think they never have 1.0. I'm really responsible for running Splunk at HELVETIA. I've been doing that for 10 years as a sideline. And we do use tools that are available, and we have some tools that we did when it's not readily available. The two things that we use, one is MetaWood. I can highly recommend it. It shows you the amount of data that's coming in, where the data is coming from. If you have suddenly a source that is showing a lot more activity, that might be interesting. And it can also easily give you an information on what sources are not reporting in for like 2 weeks. That might be an issue, right? So that's one thing, free. I can highly recommend to download it. Second thing is the Chargeback app. Pretty cool. You can plug in a couple of numbers that are not our numbers because you see them, right? You can just type in what does storage cost, what is the license cost, and then per index you can split it by different teams, and it will give you the number you can charge in case you charge. I'm not sure, but it shows you, you can get a relation between the value that you get from something and what it costs you. Right? It's really easy, and it shows you a lot of things. Then there's, I think there was a show of hands how many people are not using Splunk yet, right? Okay, so that might be interesting for you guys. Splunk is a really convenient product for managing. There's two main things that we have seen challenges with. One is all the settings, all the applications, all the configurations. The benefit is they're all text files. So you can use a versioning tool. We use Git. It has access to the files. You can just check in changes. You know who did the change. You can then push it to your central repository, and you can take all the apps that you need with all the configurations. When you set up a new host, and you have it in a couple of minutes ready, working with the same configuration. That's really cool. You see who changed what. You can go back a version. It's really, really easily accessible. It's quite cool. One small thing is usually the users do stuff on the UI, so we need to merge that back into the default settings. So there's a custom command for that. That is just merging all the settings to default, and then you can check it in again. It's on Splunk base. The second thing is, we have a cluster, so we have data redundancy to save space and just improve a little bit the handling. We do try to have the minimum of data in the backup. So Splunk is, again, very open, very easily accessible. Each bucket of each index only has one master bucket in the cluster. You can identify that and just send that to the backup. We do that regularly, so we have a minimum set of data in the backup and can also save on the storage, because you can just restore it already indexed anytime you really need it. That's really convenient. So that's also very easy to do with Splunk. It's just a small shell script, like 3 lines of code. But I can give it to you if you want, right? So that's stuff. And the ultimate thing to really go into today, I guess, is that stuff. That's a shameless plug. You might be able to use it, I'm not sure. Since I am the Splunk guy, I unfortunately am not administrator of all the target systems that are sending data. So I came up with a small tool that allows me to inspect a remote machine, check out some metrics. Splunk has the introspection index with lots of stuff. You might have to enable it on a universal forwarder, but that's easy. And it gives you information like what's the CPU usage, the memory usage of the Splunk agent on the machine. You can also do that across all your deployment. If you don't have a monitoring tool, I mean, that would be basically enough, I guess. The next thing is you can, as you see in the screenshots, check out the status of the diverse inputs that are running on this forwarder, or you can, that's, I think, pretty well hidden. Actually, you can explore the file system as Splunk sees it, so you can quickly check out if you have access to this file that they said that you have to index, and you can click and just add a one-shot to that. There's a couple of more features. You might be able to make use of it, I'm not quite sure. It's on Splunk base. And one last thing, obviously they will not allow me to use their servers, right? So I will not allow them to use my servers, right? So for the advanced Splunk users, we have a minimal shell. It's a bit like bash shell, but it's in pure Python with the minimal commands that you might need, like checking out the source of a file exactly on the server. You cannot really do much harm. There's no delete. Remove file. So, but yeah, it gives you a good chance at finding out exactly where the stuff is. And it should finally have, when I'm able to release it, the necessary tools to work with Git directly without shell access to the machine. So that's really convenient, in my opinion. So if I would have to summarize the key benefits of these 3 use cases, it really is, for the logging service, the ability to do cross-systems root cause analysis. And that includes all the guys. That can be the application developer. It can be the guy who runs the web application firewall. It could be the guys doing the integration bus. It doesn't really matter because you can do cross-silo search. And once you have something that you know that might happen, you can try to proactively fix issues by monitoring complex patterns that happen across systems. Very difficult with simple tools, so Splunk is really useful for that. Then the telephony guys, well, they told me, right? They told me that the inventory and capacity management is really useful for them. And they have a radically simplified config validation and quality assurance process because they can do lots of stuff with the real-time information. You might have seen we have not yet released that, but you can run macros on the phone and do like remote desktop on it. It's kind of cool. But yeah, not yet 100% finalized. And for the security incident event management, I think the first thing that we really were able to do was KPIs. Management will love you, I guess. And they see that you're actually working, right? So the second thing is we can generate and track qualified incidents with loads of information. You can do whatever you want, right? So next steps, performance. But that's not an issue of Splunk. That's pretty much just the expanding usage. Every more user will work with it, so you always need more performance, but Splunk is able to scale to stratospheric levels. We're very far from any bottleneck, really. We should be doing lots of security use cases, I guess. My boss will be happy to concur, I guess. Do more cross-silo interactive dashboards. More and more techies are using it. I see Splunk on almost every screen when I walk through the company in the ops section. Everybody's using it. Yeah, and train more people, get more people hooked. Once they realize what they can do and what they can do themselves already with a little bit of assistance, it's super easy. Once they see the potential, we're good. Okay, key takeaways. I guess empower your developers, give guidance, work with your standards committees, set standards and guidelines to have it automatically integrated, etc. One of our bigger helpers was actually internal audit, because that's why we could use it. So I'm happy with them. Then no data is off reach. I mean, if you have a reasonably skilled developer, I'm not really very skilled, you can just write a component and get your data in. It's a super open system. If you're stuck, usually the question has already been answered on answers.splunk.com. That's pretty much like Stack Overflow. And if you're really in a hurry, you can also go to Slack. That's really convenient. One thing you have seen, we're using Splunk since like forever, but it was small, and we had to migrate to a cluster. Cluster wasn't really that much fun back then. So if you can, start with a cluster. Start with a multi-site cluster, and things will be super easy. If you don't start with a cluster, then it's doable, but it was not that much fun. Thank you.